members. District 2, Grady Simpson. District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem. District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem. And I've been told that Tim Royce, District 5, is running late, but he will join us, so I have a quorum present, and we'll continue with our meeting. At this time, we'll have invocation. Grady, if you'll lead us in invocation, and those stand and remain standing for the pledge and both flags.
Bow our heads, please. Father God, we come giving you thanks and gratitude for another day. We pray for those ones who are suffering throughout the world, throughout our regions, and throughout our cities. We ask, God, for your protection. We ask for your wisdom to come upon our leaders to solve complex issues in difficult situations. We ask that you would guide this council and lead us in a way that will be a benefit to our citizens and an example for all to see. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Grady. Next item on the agenda is Mayor and Council Community Recognition and Events. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring
Mayor,
to the council? Yes.
Yes, I do want to say thank you, not only to our city manager, our on-call crew, and then also Encore got a knock on my door early this weekend and reached out to staff, and within a couple of hours they were able to address an issue that was of a great concern to a family and their home. So thank you, Mike, staff, and our partners like Encore.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to give a special thanks to our public service workers here in Terrell. The heat is very hot, and they're trying to stay hydrated. And I noticed it's 2 roads in my district that they've making an effort to repair. We had a lot of complaints about those areas, and I appreciate their efforts in getting out and making those roads smooth for our citizens. And I just like to see some nice changes for them in our future, if we could, council and the mayor can consider.
Thank you. I also want to recognize the Public Works. 200 Laurel Trail, there was a water break main weekend, and it was hot toward late evening, and our crews get out there and do the work. Also want to take this time to say thank you to those who are working, and then tell the council, as Councilman Simpson from District 2 just recognized. I hope as we move forward in the budget that we put as priority 1 our employees. They are there doing the work consistently, and we need to put them priority 1 as we move through our budget. But again, thanks to our public works system. Anyone else? Next item on the agenda is heard remarks from visitors. Do we have any? Hearing none, we're going to move on. Item number 6, just for the record, we do have Tim Royce, District 5, who has joined us. Our next item is item 6.1, discuss and consider the minutes of the regular city council meeting on July the 12th of 2022. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the regular city council meeting minutes, July 12th, 2022.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1, discuss appointments to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. City Secretary Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, there is a zoning board of adjustments roster in your packet, along with Carolyn Fairley's resignation email. And there are several applications in your packet as well for appointment, and this falls under Tim Royce.
Okay. Tim, do you have any recommendations, comments for the Zoning Board of Adjustment?
Mayor, if it's all right with you, I would like to move this one to next week's agenda. I haven't been able to contact all of the applicants.
No worries. So we need a motion to table.
Okay. Mayor, I make a motion to postpone 7.1 until the next meeting on July the 26th.
Is it postpone or table?
Postpone.
It is postponed? Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Our next item, so we have a motion from Tim Royce, District 5. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council. Our next item on the agenda is 7.2, discuss and consider appointment to Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, City Secretary Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, in your packet is a roster for the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's also an email from Rosie Juarez, who did not wish to be reappointed, and there are several applications in there as well, and this falls under Myrani Velasquez.
And I believe we're going to postpone this agenda item as well. Is that correct, Mayrani?
Correct.
All right, is there a motion?
I move to table item 7.2.
Postpone, I think.
Postpone. I move to table, I move to
No, postpone.
postpone item 7.2 to the August 2nd council meeting.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion from Mayrani Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Tim Royce, District 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council. Our next item on the agenda is 8.1, discuss FY23 labor cost considerations. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I'm going to speak from here. I'm going to ask our HR Director, Carol Holland, to come on up and join as well, and we'll kind of tag team on this item. Dora's handing out an item that's a little analysis on labor costs for you so that we can take a look at that. As you know, we've got our budget retreat on August the 4th and 5th, and we are busy working on all the different elements and details that come up in the budget season. Jay Ayers is working for you, getting the tax rate analysis done and making sure that we have all of our estimates ready to go for next time around. In the midst of that, we do want to make a priority about our workers and making sure that we treat them right and making sure that we have opportunity to do a meaningful change to some salary levels that we think is long overdue. So a little bit of background, our start of the total labor budget at the start of FY22, that's that $20 million number that you see on there. We made a series of changes during the course of FY22 that were all approved by council. So that's going to be things ranging from adding those 2 police officers, making our adjustments in the police officer salaries. We also went through with the education certification pay. So we did a lot during FY22 that we brought forward to you and said, okay, let's make some mid-year adjustments. So now the question becomes, if we did nothing, right, what would our budget be for labor in FY23? Because of everything baked in already, we know our labor budget for next year would be starting at this $21,885, okay? And so there's a little asterisk there. I'll get to the details of that asterisk when I get to the end of the presentation. Step 1 is Carol manages our position pay grades. And as you recall, Carol's presentation for the 3-year strategic plan, we gave you a copy about how all the pay grades line out, right? So you're going to have pay grade 5 that's got things like custodian in it. And then you're going to have pay grade 21 that's got things like wastewater superintendent and water superintendent in it, and then so on down the line. The higher you are on pay grade, the higher level of responsibility you have, so department heads are a little bit higher than that still. So one of the observations we have is that just because of the way we assign a lot of responsibility to some of our employees, we really felt more comfortable with the idea that some of the folks are in pay grades where we'd really like to move them to a higher pay grade. That's part of who they are. That's part of the responsibility that we give them, and particularly in our current configuration where we do run rather lean in staffing, every employee we've got is not an extra employee. Every employee we've got is a hardworking person who has got a lot of expectations upon them. So we felt like moving from one pay grade to another is a good thing. That's really a nickname, though, for a 5% raise, because each pay grade position is separated by 5 percentage points. So communications specialist, equipment operator, detention officer, equipment operator 2, equipment operator 1, maintenance worker 2, library tech 2, maintenance worker 1, mechanics helper, custodian 2, library tech 1, custodian 1. They're all in different pay grades, rather low pay grades, right? And they all are recommended for being moved up one pay grade. So that's everybody who has that job title moving from whatever step level they're at today to the equivalent step level in the higher pay grade, right? So if I'm on level 5 right now, and I'm on level 5 or grade 5, step 7, then I'll just move to grade 6, step 7, okay? I stay in the same step level. The estimated cost of that, these are low wage employees for us. Estimated cost of this is not particularly difficult. That's $50,000. So we are happy to bring that particular recommendation forward. Next is market adjustment. So market adjustment is where we compare ourselves against all of our competing cities. Carol's been keeping this up for quite some time. The Catherine Ray study that Carol mentions all the time is kind of the thing we use as our benchmark. We're analyzing options ranging from a low of 4% to a high of 8%. Somewhere in that range, I think, we'll land on affordability, and that would be an across-the-board market adjustment for everybody. Our current compensation plan shows us 12.8% behind our competitive market. Carol can detail some of that for you. We did a study with SGR of our department head compensation. The directors as a group are 15% our competitive market group. The hourly rate for field staff equates to this number here, $29.56 monthly. The monthly cost of living for a family of 4 in North Texas is that $33.61, and that number is before all the gas price inflation and all of the other inflation that's been happening right now. So we were about 14% behind that cost of living standard before, and now we're going to be a little bit further away from that for our working field employees. If we do this, low end, 4%, that'd be around 1.1 million. High end, that'd be around 1.9 million, okay? So that's your big chunk of cost right there. And like I said, we're doing more work to decide, could we be at 4%? Could we be at 8%? Phase 3 is our standard step increase. The pay plan, of course, calls for every year you are here, you move from step 4 to step 5 or step 5 to step 6. We have not been good over the last 25 years of providing those step increases. We've done it occasionally, and when I say occasionally, I mean just barely, okay? And so we've got some people who've been here 20 years, and they may have only gotten 2 step increases because the civilians don't get the automatic increase that our police and fire are privy to. We do intend to fully fund that. And again, that one's about $600,000. The last one, step 4, is what we nickname long-tenured minimums. So this is intended to look backwards in time and say, you know what, we do have those civilian employees that might have been here for a long time, and we want to make sure that they just meet some certain dollar amount thresholds. And you can see after we do all of the other improvements, there's not just a ton of employees who still get impacted by this, but there are some, and we want to be mindful of that. So anybody with 18 or more years of experience who's not making $22 per hour would be moved up to the step level necessary to make at least $22 per hour. 12 folks tenured with 12 to 17.9 years would get up to $21 an hour. And then going down from there, you got a $20 level and a $19 level. Estimated total cost of that would be about $125,000 to get everybody at those threshold pay levels. So you might think to yourself, well, that might be an equipment operator or somebody like that who has been working for us for quite some time, and we want to make sure they get the other raises, so they're still getting the other raises, but if they just happen to end up below one of these threshold levels, they would still get that additional pay level increase. The total cost ranges between 1.9 million. I can say with some confidence that I feel like that we can comfortably afford the 1.9 million. The analysis that we're doing between Jay, Carol, myself, Rodney Rhodes, who's helping us with the budget this year, is could we get closer to that 2.7 million? And I do not want to give you any overconfidence that we can do that. We're struggling through that part of the budget right now, but I did want to make sure we showed this to you because we think it's a priority. I know many of you have asked for this as a priority for us to make sure we compensate at the right level, and we're mindful of that. So again, detail-wise, you know me, I'm going to give you all the details I can. The analysis includes all of our current council-approved staffing, so that's your filled positions and your vacant positions, and it's all the full-time folks and the part-time folks, and it covers general fund, utility fund, and equipment replacement fund. I did not put the cost in here associated with the downtown project office, since that's fully funded through the tax increment refinance zone. And as we've discussed before in executive session, we are doing that change over where Mr. Rogers is moving to the Senior Director of Capital Projects for us. That project's going to be funded out of the Capital Improvement Fund due to the crossover between himself and the city engineer position that we're recruiting. So again, that's not in those other funds, but we are doing that as promised. So then the last note here is last week I gave you a list of additional positions we'd like to consider and put into the budget. Some of those I'm sure I'm going to recommend to you. I won't go back through those since we talked about them last week, but this analysis is not including those positions. So I did that quickly because I wanted to give you guys plenty of time to talk to Ms. Holland about it, and I'd be happy to answer questions as well.
Go ahead, Ms. Holland.
Oh, I just would like to endorse and co-sign what Mike has presented, that, as you know, obviously, we are still behind the market, but this rather robust proposal would move employees to a point where we will still be behind the market, but it would be more than the living wage that we are below right now. So I would co-sign on this proposal, specifically that it has a phase-in for those long-tenured employees who are the actual pinnacle of the work that is performed here. They have the experience. They know pretty much where the work needs to, the direction that the work needs to present to keep our infrastructure intact. So I'm pleased that we have that catch-up for those long-tenured employees. And with that, I would entertain any questions.
Ms. Holland, I think you're going to have support from, certainly from the mayor, and I hope from the council to move forward with the cost that Mike feels comfortable with currently, which was, I think you said
1.9.
1.9.
Yes.
And we want to hope that we can get to the 2.7.
Yes.
At somehow. My goal is to make our employees priority one in this budget. So whatever you recommend that you're comfortable with, make sure that we hear and see during our retreats those numbers, right?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
We owe it to those who have been with us a long time. I know we've talked a lot about wanting to do this, and this is an opportunity to step forward. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you, Mike and Carol. I do have a couple of questions, and they're more so in regards to, I'll use a word Tim Royce likes to use, right, process. So it sounds like when we have previously heard requests or recommendations for increase in pay of staff, whether it's moving from one step or doing a across-the-board 5% increase for specific group or grades of staff members. We received, usually a recommendation for 5% across the board or a specific group of individuals, but this seems much more detailed in the way that it's presented, that it's presented in different phases of moving from position pay grade adjustment, doing that first, doing the market adjustment, then doing the standard step increases, the long tenure minimums. So I would like some more time to really understand what happens when you go from pay position grade adjustment and then implementing a market adjustment to better understanding the standard step increases and long tenured minimums, because I'm experienced in understanding what it means to go from one step to another, and then also, like many other organizations are doing market adjustments just because of how hard it is to recruit and retain, and inflation, and organizations like ours that are behind the market, that were behind the market already. So those are easier for me to digest today. So I certainly do want to come back, want to study phase 3 and phase 4 and hear from both of you.
I'll just say a little point, which is from a process standpoint, we were very mindful of the complicated nature of this, and that's why I stuck it on the agenda. So I go ahead and hand the piece of paper to you, let you guys start thinking about it before the budget retreat. So absolutely, we understand it's a lot to digest. The other thing I would say is that I will send out an item that we sent out previously, I think in maybe March, right after Carol presented her 3-year strategic plan. We sent out a copy of the pay plan setup, and it makes it a little bit easier to look at and visualize. Okay, I see equipment operator on there. That means that this person's going to move from here to here on that schedule and receive that 5% raise. And so that visual element of it, I think, will help, and I'll send that back out again as well. So Carol, do you have anything else?
Yes, the same document that Mike has just referenced, the current comp plan, the theory behind and the reasoning behind moving from one pay grade to the next is because when you analyze and do your analytical analysis, you will see that, for instance, pay grade 5, the top out would be less than what we're recommending to stay above the poverty line. What I mean by it is when you see the top out for pay grade 5 would be $18 an hour, and we're trying to get employees to $20 an hour. That is the reasoning behind eliminating grade 5 and 6 for use now. We're going to still keep it in the plan because it has its worth. But to move employees, long-tenured employees, we need to move them to a different pay grade so they would have room to grow, and it would surpass that poverty level of below $19 an hour.
And as much as I would love for this to be a very simple conversation of yes, let's, you have my support on increasing the pay for staff and moving along pay grades, et cetera. Sounds great to be able to say that, but what are the implications, on the human resources side and your department? So one of my questions, which you have answered, Carol, was if we're moving from one step to the other, does that mean, and you said, no, we're not keeping, well, we are technically keeping those steps, but we won't have any more employees. We won't have any employees, any current employees that will be on, I believe you said 5 and 6 or 4 and 5 any longer, because everyone will be above those specific pay grades.
Yeah.
And I would also say another little nuance, and that is that for just historical reasons over at the library, we've not had some of the part-time employees represented on the pay plan at all. And so part of this is also making sure that we are so behind in staffing at the library with some of those part-time slots. We really felt like it was necessary to clarify that they get to be on the pay plan also. They don't just get to hang out at
couple of other questions, but to make sure I understand, and Carol, so your recommendation is that the Phase 1 should be position grade adjustments versus the market adjustment?
Correct, and that's because I'm speaking of employees currently, not recruiting employees. And so I talked about, if you remember back in March, that my term, my concept is what I call compression. So I wouldn't want to bring a new employee and have them at the same rate as our tenured employees who has this 18 to 20 year of experience. So I as I said earlier in my preamble, that the grade 5 and 6 has its benefit, they have their benefits, and I would like to leave them there because we want to use the higher pay grades for our tenured employees, and that would be a working negotiation amount when we recruit, that we would start them with 5 and 6, in my opinion, but they wouldn't compress with our tenured employees, and they would just work to that level.
And that makes sense. And Carol, let's say, you and your staff get the green light on doing Phase 1. What does that mean in terms of, your department's time frame and implementation of this across the board for everyone that's listed, that would be considered under this, be impacted under the Phase 1?
Yes. Let me just say, from a budget standpoint, the number you see in there is a 12-month cost of doing it on October 1st. And I just want to clarify that, because what you're really asking is the logistics of how
Right.
quickly HR can accomplish all of that.
And because we are fully automated, and because we've always been fully automated the last 30 years, it's a matter of making sure that the data, the current rates are correct, and making sure the formula, that when we do the algorithm, that is correct, and then it would give me the new hourly rate, and then I would ensure the tedious part would make sure that it fits within the comp plan. So if the mathematical algorithms are off, I would want to make sure why is it meshing up with and reading the same as, for example, grade 9, step 5, or grade 6, step 15. I want to make sure that those numbers are intertwined, because it would throw off the finance when they are generating the actual cost for that fiscal year. So tedious, yes, but it wouldn't be, it's not so complicated that it couldn't have been processed when we're given the go that it's going to go live the first check in October. It wouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah. So just another little note of clarity there. You vote on the budget on September the 6th, and then it's an ordinance, so it'll need a second reading on September the 13th. So we're really, we're using the word compression a lot here. HR departments are going to be rather compressed in, okay, find out what the vote is on the 6th and the 13th, and then put it all in place, hopefully for October the 1st.
2-week time period.
No, yeah, 2 weeks, 10 business days, 2 weeks. The process that would make the more time we would have would be beneficial. 10 days, it would need to route to ensure that Mike's is signing off on it, that these numbers are what I presented to the council through the budget, ensuring that the finance department are good with the numbers, because this is going to be throughout the fiscal year, and then it would roll over, because you need to understand, I know you understand, but whatever you pass now is going to be the same, it would be the number we will work off for the next fiscal year. So we wanted to make sure that all of the dollars are there.
Right, okay.
How many current, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I'm going to just double check my, so for Phase 2, the market adjustment, I do see here that we have, that we're analyzing pay ranges from 4 to 8 employee, for 4 to 8% for all employees. So what can we expect during budget? Is it, here's a grid of what happens if we do at 4%, 6%, 8%?
Thank you for asking. Jay Ayers and I were just looking at various ways to show that to you just today. So we'll have a element we'll have the simple version and the complicated version. Let me say it to you that way. The simple version is we're going to summarize some information in a PowerPoint so that you can see, okay, here's the big picture stuff. And then, of course, for those of you who want to dig into more detail, we'll have, as usual, the fully loaded budget. For fully loaded budget, I think it's usually easier to pick a number, and you'll have Carol, Jay, and I's best estimate about what's affordable. So again, I'm not going to try to say that number, but we'll have a number, low of 4, high of 8. We'll work within that range. Whatever number we feel is affordable, we'll provide you a fully detailed draft budget with that number. Then I'll give you a PowerPoint that says, hey, if council thinks that number's too high and we're being too ambitious, this is what happens if you scale down. And if council wants to be more supportive of a higher number, we'll show you in the PowerPoint what would happen if you made that decision to be a bit more aggressive than staff wanted to be.
Sure, and I appreciate both you, Mike, and Carol answering the questions. I'm certainly supportive of making sure that we compensate our staff, our current staff, have a market adjustment so we can recruit for those open and future positions we anticipate to have. It's just so helpful for me to understand what the process and the logistics looks like before moving forward, and then of course knowing what that's going to look like after each possible step.
You'll have the full picture, because if you, these are just dollars, and so what you'll have in the presentation would be all of those benefits that are attached and are tentacles to the dollars, i.e. the FICA, TMRS, how those numbers adjust, because we would have to adjust those numbers to make sure, because it's all the same dollars. It'll be all the same dollars that is affordable. So you'll have longevity, all of the supplemental pay that's received, and all of the attached benefits that are affected by labor dollars.
I'm going to tag on Ms. Holmes' Thomas question, which is how many employees do we have?
Does it
We
affect?
have 200 full-time authorized positions and 6 authorized part-time positions. So I always call that 203 FTEs, right? Carol, you want to take a swing at what kind of vacancies we've got out there right now? I know you probably don't have an exact count, but generally speaking.
Yes, because obviously, as you know, we are growing. So in anticipation of a need to assist other employees, we currently have an assistant building official to assist our building official. We have labor positions. We have equipment operators because there is an anticipation of some retiring. And so with the number of years of experience, we want to make sure that the overlap, those new employees are familiar enough to take over when our employees retire, when some of the employees may select to retire. And so we have equipment operator, labor positions, we have maintenance workers, and those are the ones that perform the laborious task. We have some replacement positions in the library. There's a resignation, so we have a library tech, and we are constantly recruiting for police and fire.
So, Carol, you like to hire people that has a little experience in these areas, like with equipment operating?
My preference, because if you remember, I referred back, we have some state of Texas requirements for employees. If you're an equipment operator, depending on the weight of the equipment, you must have a Class A license. And so with that Class A, you usually have the experience that tags along with it. So we are looking for tenured employees because of the sophistication of our equipment and apparatuses that we use.
Royce?
I'm going to work backwards. Phase 3, and maybe for budget retreat for council, which can be presented at budget retreat, but Phase 3, I'm curious how many staff members that would affect, and then their titles, so that'd be good for council to know at budget retreat. And then Phase 3, is it all or nothing? Is there is there,
So let me translate so everybody is on the same page with what you just said. When you say phase 3, that's our standard step increase.
yes,
Standard step increase by rule would be that police and fire, sworn officers, right? Those folks are always getting a 2.5% increase as they move from one step level to another. So that's not a discretionary item. That gets built in automatically. The thing that's discretionary has been, do we provide a civilian step increase? And the notion and the cost shown to you here is everybody, every single employee gets a step increase in this year's budget. And so that's the clarity on the answer on that one. I am going to be talking to Carol, and we're going to kind of kick around the idea of, is there anything that we could do, and it would probably require an amendment to your employee handbook, but is there anything we can do that would be rather straightforward that would say either for this year or for the next moving forward year, can we adopt a policy where we've got some level of filter there where you can disqualify yourself for getting the step increase due to some sort of negative behavior you might have had during the year? Generally speaking, we don't have that because we would tend to remove an employee who was on a negative track. But there may be something to be done there, and we're going to analyze that as part of this as well.
and I would call that merit, right?
Yes,
So,
sir.
Okay, and then I will not make any comments on phase 2. Phase 1, my comment is, hey, council, man, this is something you could take off your plate at budget retreat, and you could act on it now if you wanted to. This is pretty straightforward. It's kind of up to you guys, but if you acted on it sooner, you can install it September the 1st.
I don't want to jump the gun on the budget, but I appreciate those comments. What I do want is for during our budget that on day one, that the first thing we address is our labor cost and adjustments to strategy, right? That should be number one. And then after that, once we figure out what that's going to do to our budget, then we can consider everything else.
You now have Carol and I plan on starting that meeting at 5 a.m. That's how excited we are about it.
No, we want to, hey, I've heard it from every one of you in the past at some point about our labor, our workers, and compensation. So we need to get that day one, first, right off the bat, figure out what that's going to be, and then we can move on with everything else. So great job. Thank you.
I also wanted to comment, just thinking about the inflation, everything that's going on. I think this was presented to us several months ago, maybe 6 months ago. I'm gonna talk to some of the council about I just know I work for an employer. They did something for us that was very nice, that helped a lot of employees and families. And that's why I was asking, how many current employees do we have? Because we're in something now that was different when we had this presentation in March. So I got some ideas going around in my head, and it was helpful even for me as an employee. One more question. In the future, how do we expect to keep up with these kind of issues on pay grade, for our employees? Is it the step increase, or is it the pay grade adjustment? What are we doing now when we get this taken care of to continue so our employees will be valued and we can pay them for what they're worth, and they never think we pay them enough. I don't think my employee always pays me what I'm worth, but I'm there and I'm happy. So we want them to have that same feeling. So what are we doing now in the future so we don't have to be doing this again and playing catch up?
I would just kind of boil that down to say, you're going to see in the future years, what we called here Phase 2 and what we called here Phase 3. That's the market adjustment and step. We should be doing some combination of market adjustment step every year. The Phase 1 and Phase 4, those are really, I think we're broken in a little bit of a way, and I'd like to make that correction and not be broken that way anymore. So I don't think that'll be recurring. It'll be what we called Phase 2 and what we called Phase 3 be the recurring ones.
Good. All right. Thank you. I look forward to seeing the presentation during the budget. Thank you, Carol. Next item on the agenda is discuss budget schedule and upcoming meeting schedule. Don?
Mayor and council, in your packet is the budget schedule that was in the packet last week. Again, I'll just call your attention to the council retreat on August 4th and 5th. Both days will be full 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we do not know the location yet. That will be announced later. Also, there is a July, August, and September calendar in your packet. We have council meetings every Tuesday through September. And that will help us to meet all of the deadlines that we have to get the budget and tax rate and all of those other things set. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So I just want to apologize to the council. You know, we're supposed to meet the first and third Tuesdays of the month, but we've got so much going on. And some of these meetings are to meet deadlines associated with the budget, so there's nothing we can do. Hopefully in the fall, we can pull back a little bit and give everybody a little break, but important that we get these meetings scheduled and that we attend and we handle our city business. Any comments or questions? Please keep your calendars open for those dates. Next item on the agenda is item 9.1, discuss and consider ordinance number 2914, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Chapter 4 Building Regulations by the addition of Section 4-37 rental registration, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing a penalty, and providing an effective date. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, we talked about this last week. I'll go quickly through it, and I won't try to hit all the same points I said last time around, but I do want to be underlining a few things. It's a rental registration ordinance, as we discussed last time. Very important to say it is not an inspection program. It's not connected at all to the Section 8 federal rental assistance, and there's we made yet again another pass through the ordinance, made sure there's nothing in it related to even implying that there might be an inspection element. When you ask why, it really goes back to the same point from last time around. In 2008, when I first showed up at the city, if we had a fire in a rent house or we had a trespass problem going in a rent house, it was pretty simple. People knew who owned rent houses here, and it could be a building official, it could be a city staff person. They say, oh, okay, I know so-and-so owns that one. I'll just call them up and we'll talk to them, because it was a small town. My observation for you is that's not going to hold. That's not going to be true in the next few years, and I'd like to be able to get ahead of it. So Woodlands, North Francis, Preserve, that's going to give us 1,200 units that'll be residential rental. There'll be some more that come in through some of those annexations that we work through over the next couple of years. And everything that we do, it can be police, fire, animal control, code enforcement, building standards, water, drainage, waste, everything. They require communication directly with the owner. And when we're mailing something to an address on the Kaufman County property tax records, we just don't have good communication. Somebody asked me the question about, well, how is this the same or is it different than a rental commercial property? Rental commercial properties are required to have a certificate of occupancy, and under the CO process, we gather most of this same information. So that's usually the process for that. But I would also say it doesn't necessarily have the same safety implications, because those of them that have a concern about safety, they'll get alarms, and they'll go through the alarm printing, or alarm process, which has an additional layer of contact information. And of course, there's not people sleeping at commercial businesses. So there's a little nuance there as well. We want to do it by a website so that it's easy from a data entry and interface standpoint. There's been a conversation between Jay and Becca and municipal development about how we can do this. We tried to keep the dollar amount low, so there's that $12 annual fee. So with that, that's kind of the quick overview. And if you could help me flip pages here. So it's Ordinance 2914. I won't go through all the definitions, but if you go to the next page, and then the next page after that, sorry, I'm trying to get to the RV, so go one more page. Thanks. So item 25 is new here. We realized that we had missed RV parks here. It's the same issue with them. They'll often have an on-site person who's not an owner, and we need to be able to contact those folks. And so we've included that here as well, because we realized that that had gotten left out of the draft that we gave you last time around. Again, we went through and made sure that we were comfortable with all the wording. We had a catch by a council member last time around. If you go to the second to last page, one more, there you go. So there used to be something on the top of this page that had a inadvertent reference to inspection. We did find that, so thank you for pointing that out, and we got that removed from this. We had, again, a question about, well, how quickly can staff really pull this off and get this done? And you can see here that the ordinance will take effect on January 1, 2023. That will give us a burn period to get information out and get websites set up and let us do it in an efficient manner without any panic on the part of staff to pull this thing off. So that's an overview of it, and I'd be happy to take questions or let you guys discuss the topic.
I would also add to, for the council, just information, when it's a business, before they get their CO, there's an inspection of the building. So it's safer, so you probably have less calls to a business than you would a residential property. But does anybody have any new questions or comments or concerns for Mr. Sims?
Yes, Mr. Sims, you said this could be passed January 2023?
It goes in effect January.
Going into effect January 2023.
Yeah. My comment is, I need knowledge that you guys endorse the ordinance. And so if we have a positive vote now or at some other time, then we need several months to get the paperwork done, get the website set up, go through our process, and make sure that we don't provide poor service to the folks impacted by this ordinance. So we need a little setup time, and whenever you pass it, I'm going to ask for quite a few months to get ready.
Anyone else?
I just want to clarify, this is the owner information that you're requesting only?
Yes, yeah, that is correct. There is, and I believe you were right to note last time around that I think there was an
Inadvertent.
yes, it was an inadvertent reference to tenant in here last time around, or maybe it was the fact that the Duncanville example had a reference to tenant on it. We're not doing any tenant information. Any tenant information we need, it comes through the water process anyway, so it's just not an important element here.
A lot of people in my district have called me personally, and after reading the paper, of course,
Right.
they inquired about this ordinance, and they don't seem to quite understand it. I know one person called me right before I came and said they would like to have some more clarity, before the council move forward on it. Them and a few other group of individuals. But,
Well, I guess my question to you, council member, would be what would they need to be clarified? Now that you know that it has nothing to do with the renter.
it doesn't have anything, I know it has
Zero to
nothing
do with the rent.
inspections or anything like that.
Nothing.
Yeah, I know that, Bob.
Has absolutely no effect at all on somebody renting a piece of property. The owner with the owner, but not the renter.
Only other question I had, I thought it was interesting, you want a copy of a driver's license or government issues ID. I've gotten several COs, it's been a few years, but I just thought that was an interesting piece of information. It's not just the information you want to be able to contact, but you also want a copy of my driver's license. Another thing, when we look at section F on page 5, or 35 of the agenda, it talks about, it wants name, address, phone number, email, so people can be contacted 24/7. In the case of an emergency, fire, natural disaster, collapse, lack of working utilities, serious police incident, other conditions. I get that. I think that should be also for commercial, but I just don't know how inclusive of the CO application is. I've done it, but it's been several years, but I don't know if I really gave a copy of my driver's license. But, I mean, to me, I'd be concerned about a commercial property having some of these same issues. They could have a fire, natural disaster, police incidents, or whatever, but, I mean, I think it's an okay ordinance. I appreciate you taking that out about the tenant. I think if people are paying their taxes and doing what they need to do, but I don't know, I just have a question about that as well, but I don't think it's a bad ordinance.
Do you want to address that, Mike?
May I?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe, perhaps maybe what we might want to look at, you said you had a problem with the driver's license.
I just think that's kind of interesting.
Would you feel better about it if we said proper identification? It wouldn't, maybe, you know, a state-approved ID. It's not a driver's license, but it would serve basically the same purpose. It would give us the information that we need to have, you know, of the owner. Now, this is not the tenant, obviously, it's the owner. But although, you know, most owners have a driver's license, but if you don't feel like it's right for us to have that kind of information, a proper identification might suffice, and if you'd feel better about that.
Yeah, I just don't know what else would work, because in the state of Texas, you can't have a driver's license and a Texas ID. You got to have either or.
Either or, that's correct.
And I don't want to give up my driver's license just to, you know, I don't know.
Well, I think the purpose of it is to make sure that you are the owner. I could come in and fill one out and say I own 10 properties in District 5, but I'm and no ID, and I don't think you're going to take my word for it. You would need to verify it some way. One of the ways to verify it is through ID. That's my thinking is why we do it. Somebody?
I would just say I believe that we're a good custodian of that sort of information.
Yeah.
We often collect that for a variety of purposes. We know how to keep that confidential. There's state laws about how we keep individual records like that confidential. You know, we occasionally get the question of, well, I want to do a Freedom of Information Act request to find out such and such. Well, under state law, that's a redacted piece of information. We legally can't give that stuff out. So I think you can trust us to be a good custodian of that kind of thing when we collect it, and it is the protection element for both parties. We, as the city, know we're really dealing with a bona fide person, and then everybody who has a piece of property knows, well, if someone's going to try to scam me and do something to me, at least we'll know that they gave the city some sort of identifying information. And I'd say, to me, it goes back to the importance of these out-of-town owners. Yeah, I mean, of course, we know the in-town owners. We know a lot of them personally. But when we start getting out-of-town owners, frankly, we're going to have owners who don't live in the country. And we're just going to have to collect some sort of government ID related to those folks so that we know who we're following up with.
You know what, Mr. Simmons, the greatest challenge I see, particularly what I've seen in my district, District 2, is undeveloped land.
Yes, sir.
Owned by property owners. It was a land that was on Bradshaw, if you remember. And someone wanted that wooded area, you know, cut down and trimmed because there was a lot of snakes and the kids was playing around. And you know, you had wild hogs running around and things like that. So we found it very difficult, you know, to contact this owner. And it'd be nice if maybe the mayor and the council, we can consider applying something to this to the undeveloped land, just like maybe we do with the
would be a
residential, something similar.
Yeah, and in many cities, there are ordinances related to things that are vacant, right? So it happens to come to mind, since I'm looking at John Godwin over here, that Paris has a unrented vacant commercial property registration. Because they want to know who's got that vacant property. Because if it's unattended as a vacant piece of property, and I mean a commercial building in their case, and it catches on fire, and the only person I got is a tax roll person because it doesn't have a CO at all, well, they run into the exact same problem. And so they passed an ordinance related to that topic. I'd have to get with Greg and check through legality of collecting that for vacant land. But, you know, we can explore some of these other topics. I don't want to render an opinion on that right now, but cities apply this idea in a variety of circumstances.
And I don't want to get off agenda on this, but a lot of what you're talking about, Councilman, would be covered in some of our codes already. I mean, when you have junk and debris on a vacant piece of property, that's subject to enforcement action, and it does occur, I can tell you. One other point on the identification too, we do very closely safeguard personal information. A lot of it you'll see over in the utility department now. You know, when you have to apply for utilities, for water and so forth, you have to give a lot of that kind of information. But it does not. It's not something that is widely accessible to the public at all, even under Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, just with the presentation, it's just so you can have a contact person if something happens.
Exactly.
So I know now what if something happens. But to me, having a copy of the owner's personal ID doesn't help the problem if something happens. If you want somebody to be contacted at 2 o'clock in the morning, I get that. I think you need to have that. But I'm just not sure about that part. Another thing too, I was concerned, it was talking about if you have a LLC or a business, it's gonna have to, we have to list all the partners. You can get that from the Secretary of State or.
It's public record.
Yeah,
That's
it
why
is.
we didn't feel like it was any big deal for them to disclose that. It is public record, you're
Yeah.
right.
I think if it's an issue with the property, I think that you need to go one step further and investigate that. But I don't think everybody that own rental property gonna be suspects, but I just think, I don't know if we have to go that in detail with people that own businesses. I think that's kind of more intrusive, finding out who, but go to the Secretary of State when you're up and can't sleep at 2 o'clock at night and see who owns that company. I mean, that's what you can do, but I don't know if it's something that we should be digging into to just find out who the emergency contact is if something catastrophic happens. I think that's just a little too much. That's just my personal
Yes, ma'am.
interpretation and views. Everybody is kind of different.
I do have follow-up questions to the rental registration section, age that council member Thomas also referenced. So the language currently reads, a copy of the owner's current driver license or other government-issued identification card containing a photograph of the owner, if the owner is a natural person. So one, it sounds like the intent here is to have a picture of the person that's filling out the rental registration, which should be the person that's owns that rental property. And then two, what my question for legal is, what is the definition of a natural person?
Naturalized citizen of the country. Would be either by birth or naturalization.
Yeah, but I think in this particular context, all we're trying to get at is, with that turn of phrase, is the difference between an LLC or a business.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true as well.
So you require some type of picture for people that have businesses?
I guess what I try to describe the difference like this. In one case, I have an owner who's a individual. I have an owner who's an individual. I'm going to make sure that I get that record from them, okay? On the other hand, if I've got the question that you brought up of whether or not I'm an LLC or a business of some sort, well, in that case, I'm collecting other information. So it's really just which category, which bucket are you in? Are you in the individual owner bucket, or are you in the I'm an LLC or business partnership or whatever? If you're in the business partnership world, I'm basically asking for something equivalent to your Secretary of State filing information. And if you're a person, then I prove who you are through your license information.
So, Mike, I do have a question regarding, going back to the identification. What are other examples, other policies that are currently at the city of Terrell where someone is required to provide us a copy of their identification, or we make a copy of their identification?
I think I'd have a hard time making that list because it's rather common.
Water services,
I think I had to do it when I did
Water
my
service.
business.
water services, I didn't have to do it when I did a CO. Didn't have to do it if I built a property,
I think you do now.
but water.
We require it for many of the applications in the municipal development department. We require it for water service issues. It's just a common practice of ours.
Okay.
Comment from
Had to be a
District
recent
5.
change within the last 24, 18 months, because I've never given ID for other permits, but okay.
Tim?
Just want to remind council, we've been working on some version of this, and this is the easiest, lightest version of anything that we've talked about in 5 or 6 years. District 5 is supportive as it's written.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, I just have to say, one of my main concerns is the non-local owners, of property. And with the anticipated growth that we're going to have in the next few years, I do believe there's something needs to be put in place such as this to help us to manage that.
Yep.
Absentee landlords, but I guess maybe some of the citizens, it could be explained that way, but for the people that I represent, they're just a little concerned, not about the ordinance itself, it's saying it's bad, that it's not a good plan, but I guess they probably want a few questions addressed, and maybe during the preparation period, as Mrs. Sims talked about, we can.
Between now and January
Yeah,
1, they can answer.
If we can just spend time, addressing that.
Okay.
Talking
We'd be
about
very
our
happy to
citizens.
do so, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And if you do find something between now and January 1, we can come back and make some revisions to
Sure.
this if you feel like.
Awesome. Now, that's all I need to hear.
Great.
All right. Any further questions? Is there a motion on 9.1?
Mayor, make a motion on 9.1 as presented.
Have a motion from Tim Royce, District 5. Is there a second?
Second?
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any, you gonna abstain?
Abstain.
I will abstain.
Aye.
Hold on, I have, let me do some paperwork here. Okay, abstain. So all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with 3-0 vote, one member abstaining. Next item on the agenda is 9.2, discuss and consider memorandum of understanding between the City Council and Tellus, Texas 2 LLC and MC Trilogy, Texas LLC. Mr. Godwin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Talked about this to you a couple times. I want to go in a little bit of detail, although I'll try to talk fast because
Yeah,
you have other things you'd like to do. But, so we've been talking to the city of McLennan Chisholm for about 2 years about trying to sell water to them. It's very important to the future of that city. They're growing, not like Terrell, not like other folks, but they're still growing. It's really important for a city to control water within its own city limits. That's one of the reasons we're dealing with Rose Hill and Lawrence and have plans in other areas as well here in Terrell. Right now, they don't have CCNs, or Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, that you get from the state. And so they're looking into that. They've been looking at it for a while. The idea was for us to run water line, kind of the short version of this, run a water line up to McLennan Chisholm, sell them wholesale, and they become a retailer. But they just don't have the resources right now. They're not large enough. They don't have the ability to go into that kind of debt. They've looked at it, and they've talked about it quite a lot. But at this point, they've decided that they just are not ready to do that, although it's still a long-term goal of theirs. During all this process, we've also been talking with Sue Mann, the Mann property, which is a pretty good-sized property to the southwest of the city of McLennan and Chisholm, and that's kind of was the catalyst for some of this. They went through a couple of developers, and then they latched on to the Tellus group. And the Tellus group is a development company that's looked into this, spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. Some of those folks are here this evening. They've been here in the past. The city, conducted Freeze and Nichols was hired to conduct a study to assess if it would make sense financially for us to run a line just to them. They have a municipal utility district there in place, so the municipal utility district could be the retailer, and then we'd be the wholesaler to them instead of the city of McLennan and Chisholm. The monies on that didn't work out really well. It just wasn't quite feasible enough. We weren't sure what to do next. We talked to High Point. High Point actually owns the CCN for the area of the Mann property. The problem with High Point is they have a giant, for them, geographical area. They don't have the ability to serve water in a lot of that. And so there was a lot of concern about reliability for a relatively small water supply corporation. Terrell's very reliable, high standards in water service and most everything else. And so that we were the preferred wholesaler for those folks and for others. Have a number of wholesale customers already, so nothing new for the city of Terrell to sell water on a wholesale basis. As we were trying to look through that again, another partner came along, a potential partner came along, and that was Huffines. Huffines was building a development, looking at building a development to the north of the Mann property, but very close to McLennan and Chisholm. Some of it's inside the city limits of McLennan and Chisholm and the ETJ. There's even a little piece in the Heath ETJ. And so they were going to build over 3,000 houses. They were going to build a package plant. That all went away. So they're now down to building approximately 1,700 single-family homes. So we met with them several times, but the groups all got together, the city and the two builders, two developers and property owners, and redid the numbers. And so the numbers, just barely, but it looks like the numbers for construction, for design, construction, easement acquisitions, they do make sense. It's feasible. It's both Tellus and Huffines at this point think that's the best option for them to get reliable, affordable drinking water for their developments. The Huffines project, again, is about 1,700 houses. The Tellus development, which is called Tapestry, is 3,019 homes, about 600 multifamily, and that's all outside of Terrell. Keep in mind that the original goal here for Terrell was not just looking for water customers, but we're wanting to make a deal with McLennan and Chisholm so that they were able to get water from us, and in exchange for that, we were able to expand our extraterritorial jurisdiction, ETJ, far to the north. Our long-term goal there is to get as much as possible all the way to the county line, to the Rockwall County line, but as much as possible of the Terrell ISD inside the city limits so that we can control quality of development and so forth and so on. And so that's what we're still working for, even though McLennan and Chisholm's not ready. This opportunity comes along. So in order to do all this, we have to get permission from North Texas Municipal Water District. That's where we buy our water. That's where their water comes from, although in case of the Tellus property, it comes through High Point. We sell water to High Point, and then High Point sells it up there. They've only got one or two customers, though, so again, they don't have the ability to serve a large development. The Huffines property is in RCH, and RCH is of questionable reliability for different reasons. In fact, they were in the news just this week. They didn't have any water at all, and they've been historically getting their water from Rockwall, city of Rockwall, but they're going to try to get their own connections and so forth and so on. Bottom line, developers don't trust them for their reliability and their affordability and different things. They'd rather get it from us. North Texas has to approve that because we're outside of our ETJ. We're in fact in one of those properties is outside the county. And so we've got to go to North Texas Water District and say, gee, we want to amend our contract so we can sell water wholesale to these extra folks. And we've been talking to them regularly, and they said, well, yeah, maybe, probably, depends, never committing exactly, but we've been moving down the line. And so we're to this point now where we want to get really something tangible. A MOU, MOA is non-binding, as you know, but it does state, this is what everybody understands. And we've had a lot of meetings between the three parties, and we all think we know where we're coming from. We've certainly talked about it enough. But now it's in writing. This is what everybody's part is, down to the, and here's the actual water line that's being proposed. And you've seen this before. And so who's going to pay for what, down to the detail, those, of course, just estimates. Who's going to acquire the easements, who's going to pay for and do the design, all those kinds of details are spelled out. Now, our goal is to go to North Texas and say, look, see how have we gone through the thought process, we've looked at this, we've analyzed this, we spent all the time we need to spend on it to make it a good product, it makes sense, you're going to get quality developments, you're going to get good things in here, you're going to sell water, because North Texas is going to sell more water because there's going to be more homes, over 4,000 and more residences in this area, these two areas. And so we have a meeting scheduled with them, the city manager, the mayor, and some others, with them on August the 3rd. We're also taking the city manager from McLennan Chisholm with us. I shouldn't say with us, but he'll be there too. And they have a new town administrator, city administrator, and he will also be attending that meeting. I have a meeting with both of them on August the 2nd, kind of brief them, bring them up to date, because they've not been involved, and their city administrator, whose name I don't know, has only been there for 2 weeks, so he's certainly behind the 8 ball. So we're moving forward on that. If that meeting goes well, then we'll bring back to the council another version of this MOA, but it'll be a binding agreement, an actual contract between the three parties. And then we will go to North Texas, we will go to their water board, and then we'll go to their entire board, or their water committee, and then we'll go to the board of the North Texas Municipal Water District up in Wiley, and they'll hopefully vote yes. That in turn kicks in a lot of other things. Looking down the road a little farther. First of all, it requires us to enter into a new contract, and I think Mr. Sims has mentioned to you guys in the past that North Texas has this new contract out there for its customers, and of course Terrell's been a customer city for a long, long time. And the biggest thing is it will require additional ratios on storage, and that means building more storage and stuff that Terrell's going to need at some point anyway. The contract we're going to have to sign at some point anyway, but not until the current one expires. So it'll just move that timeline up. So there's going to be, that's part of the expense that the city of Terrell will have on storage. It's not a bad thing at all to do. So we're not worried about that. So we'll commit to that. We'll have to sign that new agreement. That'll also bring you under the new structure, pricing structure that North Texas is in the process of implementing. That will have some change, perhaps on your rates, but they're in the process of changing your rates no matter what, because of a lot of different things that they've had going on over there, which we don't need to go into today. And so once that's approved, Tignall and Perkins, which is the engineer for the Huffines development, they will begin doing acquisition of easements, and in some cases perhaps rights of way. The design will be done by those folks, and the construction will be managed by them as well. We will collect funds from them, and then we will disperse those funds as they build. So that'll get built. It'll take a couple of years or more to get all of that done, but that's the whole plan. Now, backing up from all of that, from stuff from 2 years from now, what we're asking for tonight is just that you approve this memorandum of agreement. So we've got something, the mayor has something to say, look, we've got our ducks in a row here. We know what we're doing. We've been methodical. We've been careful. We've got partners from the developers, and we've also got a partnership with McLennan Chisholm. So with that, any questions that you may
Council, Council, we've been briefed on this for some time, and now we're getting to the point to where everybody understands their role as we move forward. I think it's a good position to have the city of Terrell in. Does anybody have any new questions for Mr. Godwin, and/or would you like to hear from the Tellus Group?
I definitely would like to hear from the Tellus Group, but I do want to know from the order is water from Terrell to High Point to Tellus.
No, this would be and that's a step another step that those folks will have to take. They will have to decertify. Tellus would have to decertify from High Point, and the Huffines development would have to decertify from RCA before they can buy water from us. So they would be retail. They both have MUDs, so those MUDs would be the retailers in this case instead of McLennan Chisholm, and we would be the wholesaler. So we'd sell directly to them.
Will there be,
High Point's gonna oppose that, and RCH is gonna oppose that.
But that's something that they do, that we as a city do not have to do. the
That's correct, that's
recertification.
correct.
I think that we've gotten into that, in other areas, and that's why I wanted the council to understand that that's not something that we as a city would have to do as far as the decertification.
That's referenced in here, those are obligations that they have, that they've agreed to.
is there any reason that you know that North Texas would not approve?
Well, there's always that chance, because it's different, it's unusual, it's us going into another county, it's us going into these other people's backyard, so to speak. RCH is gonna say, gee, you can't do that, you can't let Terrell come in here and get our business. And High Point's gonna say the same thing. The problem, the response to that is, well, we wouldn't be talking to Terrell if you guys could serve us water. So that's the argument they will make. I think they'll be wrong. Whether we'll win or not, don't know. We'll learn a lot, I think, on August 3rd. We're meeting with the executive director, Jenna Covington, and I think we'll get a lot of, typically, the board's gonna follow her lead. She's gonna make a recommendation on this to approve or not approve. We'll know that well ahead of time. So hopefully, the mayor will do a wonderful job, and the city manager will do a wonderful job. I'm sure they will. They did this morning in Kaufman County, by the way. And I think that August 3rd meeting is gonna be very important for all of us.
But it's going to benefit North Texas as well for them to do that, so it.
I think that's right. I think that's right, John.
All right. Question on taps. Man tapestry, is that the green or purple?
Tapestry is, I always forget which one is which. You guys are Tapestry. Is that right?
Tellus is purple.
Tellus is Tapestry? Yeah. And Trilogy, the Hawthorns, is the one way up there to the far north, so way, way up there.
Okay, I've asked this question before, and council needs to keep holding this question. Taps, has anything changed with taps? Can I tap between the city of Terrell and Purple? If the city of Terrell needs to run a tap somewhere in that area, does our memorandum of understanding let us do
Let me
that?
take a shot at that one. So the answer is, as this red line goes from our city limits and goes out toward the purple, the man property, then we will have rights to expand water taps off of that. So the answer is yes. You get to a point as you go north on there where we would not contemplate an interest in doing so. You can just barely break out the Kaufman County, Rockwall County boundary on this map, and I would suggest to you that consistent with our comprehensive plan and growth policies and the strategy we've been taking, our general interest has been things like retail water provision make sense within Terrell Independent School District for us, and outside of Terrell Independent School District, we would call that a stretch too far. So that's basically how the MOU is set up.
Okay, so we can tap all the way up to the county line, basically, or to the first
Basically, right.
property. Okay, that makes sense.
And it's designed so that when McLennan Chisholm is able to buy water from us directly, we'll be able to provide it to them.
It's like a long water line.
It's a very long water line, looking for new customers, which we feel certain that'll fill in as time goes by. We just want to be
All
ready.
the growth, that'll fill up. Next.
So my question is for, on the memorandum of understanding, number 14, if I'm reading this correctly, should the city start the conversation, request that a section or a line that we're approving in this memorandum of understanding needs to be larger, or for some reason decreasing it, then the city would be expected to pay the cost.
Right, that's part of the overall pro rata share. So ideally, if we had no use for the water from point A forward, we would have the developers pay 100% of that. But we're oversizing that line on purpose because we're assuming we're going to serve other properties up there. Whether it's McLennan Chisholm or not, there are other properties we assume we will serve. So that's part of our pro rata, will be that difference between the 20-inch line and the 24. Another example of that is we need to have a bigger easement because we may add another line in there in that same easement. So yeah, we can't make them pay for things that are us expanding our service.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
This is a discuss and consider item on the memorandum of understanding between the City of Terrell and Tellus, Texas 2 LLC and MC Trilogy Texas LLC. Is there a motion on item 9.2?
Motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Terrell and Tellus, Texas, Second War II LLC and MC Trilogy, Texas LLC.
Have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed?
Abstain?
Abstain? All right, we have, the motion passes, 3
Thank you, guys.
full vote, one person abstaining. Next item on the agenda is 9.3, discuss and consider resolution number 2006, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 1 Board of Directors authorizing funding for downtown project office. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I'm going to start by asking maybe Dora or Elmira would help Dawn with the handout that's over here. So we passed this at the Tax Increment Refinance Zone meeting that was back in May. And you can see we've included that here. There's Resolution 2022-2 by your TERS zone saying, hey, we've looked at this. We've analyzed this issue. We recommend a proposed downtown project office. And so, as they normally do, what they're doing is they're making a recommendation that tax increment refinance zone funding be able to be used for a certain group of expenses. So, if you go into the next couple of pages of it's the downtown project manager and then the admin assistant. The annual proposed downtown project office included, based on the TERS board recommendation, project manager and admin assistant, a lease and some funding for the building operations, some supplies and materials, and then, of course, the P3 works reporting and financial analysis. And so, as you know, we already brought you the contract with P3 Works. That part got approved. And now what we're doing is we wanted, as is our normal process, for the City Council basically to endorse the recommendation of the Tax Increment Refinance Zone. So that brings you to Resolution 2006. It was originally put together for a council meeting in May. I told you we had a little bit of delay creating a couple of these documents. We were asked by council to go ahead and show you the job description for both of these. I realize I'm just now handing them out, and so by all means, if y'all want to pass and tackle this in another council meeting, I don't mind a bit. But just to roll through it, I'm going to start with the one that says Downtown Project Manager. And you see an overview. That's typical for the way we write these. This is based on the engineering project manager job description and the public services project manager job description. When we use the phrase project manager, what we're generally talking about is a person who is managing somebody else we hired, a group of contractors, a series of contractors, somebody with permission to build something in the city, somebody who's doing a project related to the consulting work necessary for any of that. So it might be overseeing the work of an engineering firm, overseeing the work of an architect, overseeing the work of a planning firm, or maybe a utility firm that's doing some work, and making sure all of that runs on budget and on schedule. So you will often see that project manager making sure that we have a grant set up the correct way, so that we are also doing the accounting to make sure that whenever we spend money on a project that we're out building, we're actually keeping track of all the spending in a way where there's a hawk that was working for us, looking at it, and make sure that we spend that money in a smart way. So that's the general overview of it. You can read some of the detail that we put in there. And I would say, you know, just again, typical of the way we set these up, you've got a group of who they're supervising. This person, as we contemplated previously, would be assigned by me to one of the department heads, and we like that coming through the Municipal Development Department for this. Project manager essential functions are listed there. You can see that list and see the sorts of things that they're doing. And again, it's coordinating all of the consultants, all of the contractors working on all of those projects. So that goes on for quite some time. There's quite a few bullet points in there about what they're doing. We provide a list of qualifications, things they need to be knowledgeable of, their ability to do certain things, and then wrap that up with, well, okay, what are their working conditions? What are their education and training requirements? So again, all of that's in there. And then we will also show you the administrative tech too. We went into this, which is a standard we've been using for quite some time in Carol's office to keep track of all of our admin technicians across all of our different departments that have admin techs. So if you turn over to the second page of that, you can see a series of things where it says, when assigned to housing, here's some special things you might do. When assigned to municipal development, here's some special things you might do. When assigned to utility billing, here's some stuff you might do. When assigned to the downtown project office, so that's the new stuff, right? So that admin assistant would be doing things like tracking, organizing, coordinating the public involvement and citizen engagement with downtown projects, maintain the project records, coordinate grant application material and deadline. Of course, the admin assistant isn't writing the grant, they're collecting all of the grant information from all of the different consultants and contractors who might be working on it, and making sure we get it all administratively complete on the deadline. Participating in field visits related to public and private downtown capital project. There's a lot of outside field work associated with that, so we'd need this person to make sure, okay, hey, we need to go photograph that, so council will have a photo of that construction and process or something like that. So we put all of that in there as well. And then you can see kind of how all of that is set up. And we would be happy to let me answer questions about it, and I'd be happy to kind of tell you about, how that would function. I guess overall, I'll just go back to the reminder that this is literally tens and tens of millions of dollars. The downtown plan has about $100 million of projects listed in it. You're going to do water downtown, sewer downtown, drainage downtown. If we're going to make sure that we get rid of open ditch drainage in a zone around the town square, we need somebody who is able to coordinate all of that and make sure they're working with property owners and helping us implement that over the course of time. Quiet zones, huge project, US 80 Spur 226 Complete Streets project. That's probably a $25 million project. Anderson Building and Griffith Building, there is daily coordination and communication with the folks rehabbing old buildings downtown. Of course, we're going to go to bid soon with the British Museum, so just like when we built the police facility, y'all recall Mr. J. Ayers was a project manager on that, so this is the same thing. We're building a major building. We're making sure we have a staff person who can coordinate it and make sure that contractor working for us is not overspending. You got the South Alley. Me and Councilman Simpson were talking before the meeting about, you're really just beginning to see the tip of the iceberg with the change of what South Alley should look like. South Alley should not be a ugly thing facing some railroad tracks. There's a big effort back there to make South Alley a good-looking part of this city. South Alley overhead utility lines will come down. We have a water development board project slated to do the water and the sewer down there. We're working on getting Atmos to replace everything down there. We'll eventually pave that properly. And then when those quiet zone improvements go in, that's a lot of pedestrian improvements right in that same zone also. We're trying to get all of our property owners down in that area to provide south-facing entrances to their buildings. And that's a major effort. We should not have the bad side of buildings facing the railroad tracks. We need to have something pleasant and good down there, and that's a project that your Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation Board has definitely adopted. We need somebody to go out and make sure that all the paperwork associated with the Sesquicentennial Murals projects get done correctly. Oftentimes, we've got to go do an inspection to make sure that the wall is really ready. And as you know, we've got some work that we're doing. Land assembly for town square and downtown parking, again, just overlooking the work of our contractors who are working on those elements. And then the biggest one here is the combination of town square park, library, community center, and senior center. That's a series of buildings over a series of time. And again, our thought is, since we're going to be working in this same geographic area for a very extended period of time, let's go ahead and have a staff person who's dedicated to tackle this combination of things and really make sure we don't step on our own toes, make sure the projects are coordinated, make sure that whenever we need to file for reimbursement from any grant agency, we have our paperwork right, and make sure those contractors working for the city are not spending too much money. So again, my commitment was bring forward the 2 job descriptions. If it's council's pleasure, you can vote on it tonight. If you'd like more time to read the job descriptions, I'm happy to just bring it back on the next agenda.
Mike, is there a time constraint on this item?
I would like to move forward in the next few weeks, so next week is just fine.
All right, because we had a request for this information and we're getting it just now, I want to give the council member time to review that and feel comfortable with it. I'd like a motion to postpone this item till next Tuesday. Is there a motion? Before we spend a lot of time on
Mayor,
discussion.
I do have one question before I move with the motion. It'll be quick here. I just want to understand the resolution 2006, which is the looks like the same resolution without
Yes, ma'am.
changes previously presented. And then I see attachment A, which has project manager 91,000, up to 91,000 salary, administrative assistant 46,000 salary, numbers that are listed there. When I read the memorandum of understanding, I'm trying to differentiate what happens if we move forward with approving a memorandum of understanding compared to, is there an additional step that needs to be taken during during budget retreat when we approve the upcoming budget regarding these 2 positions, or is it,
Yeah,
are
so
they married together? Are they separate?
This is a great process question. So clarity. Step 1 is, if you're going to spend TERS money, then you need to have the TERS board vote yes, and you need to have the city council of the city of Terrell vote yes. All this is doing is saying, hey, you think that you agree with the TERS board that the right thing to use TERS money on is this project, okay? Then what I would tell you is, from the standpoint of how quickly can we move forward to fill these positions, I think they're very high priority positions. I think I'd like to move forward rather quickly for them. And I think that we've got a couple of good opportunities to get these positions filled and move forward with them. And I think it will very much help get our downtown projects rolling and moving. What you will see in the FY23 budget after this resolution should pass is that you're going to see in the FY23 budget your tax increment refinance zone budget for FY23 will include, for the first time, line items for labor, and a line item for a lease, and a line item for some of these supplies and materials that they'll need to actually do that work. And that should really be your expectation here, is that as soon as we get the approval, we can start working on filling the positions. And also, you will have to do the same thing for these positions that you do for every single other position, which is, it needs to be in the FY23 budget, just like we put Allison and Dora and Omira and Steve and everybody else into the annual budgets. We'll reflect that in the annual budget.
And then I do have one more question. When there's a couple different departments listed for the administrative technician that they would be supporting.
So let me clarify, that's not what that means. What that means is the administrative assistant is going to be, it is a generic job description that's citywide. We assign the administrative assistant to either be in municipal development or in court or somewhere else. They're not moving back and forth. They show up, they sign up for their job, and they say, oh, I'm applying for the municipal development admin position because that one's vacant. they fulfill that role, they play that role. They're only doing the stuff listed there for municipal development. They're not also going over to court sometimes or also going to the other ones. So the idea is that the admin tech two should be consistent across the city in terms of the major roles and major type of work that they're doing. But we like to put in the job description, hey, when you're assigned to this particular department, you're there every day 8 to 5. You're just working for that department for years maybe. But just so you know, here's the specialty items that the admin tech position does in that department.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
These two positions, maybe I overheard this, but did you say they were contracted positions or?
No, this would be city employees.
Okay.
These would be city employees. My goal here is that I believe that we will do better, save more, and have a more attentive staff position looking at our spending of tens of millions of dollars of construction funds if I have an in-house person who is saying, okay, did that contractor do the right thing on that project? And did that contractor talk to that contractor, because they're working generally in the same area? That's my goal for this, and so I very much want this to be city employees.
So, go ahead.
Well, in the process
Yes.
of trying to find these individuals, is there gonna be like a company that we're gonna hire to go and find these individuals?
No, I have a hope, but not a knowledge that we can do this with an in-house person who might be able to get a promotion or a transfer or something like that, because we've got some very talented people with some roots in Terrell. So they're not high-ranking enough positions that would be things that would come to you guys to see who that personnel is. But I can assure you, we've got employees who look at this and say, wow, that's the most exciting project in Terrell. I like that idea. So, right, yeah, so I'll have a bit of a process to go through, but I'm very confident that we've got a good opportunity with internal.
So for the record, I am in favor of moving forward with the resolution. However, there was a request made for information. If that council member needs time to review it, I'm good with that too. Or if there's a motion to move forward with it, that works as well. So either to postpone until next Tuesday or to move forward with it. Is there a motion?
This is resolution 2006.
Yes.
Mayor, I make a motion that we move on resolution number 2006
That we approve it?
for approval.
I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Tim Royce, District 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay, only because I wanted more time to review the job description.
All right, motion passes 3-1. Next item on the agenda is to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 55. Three, I think. Isn't there three? One of the county and two of the.
Is the county?
No, not the county.
Yes.
Just the two resolutions.
We don't do anything on the county? We're going to return into regular session, take action on any items discussed in executive session. If there are any motions, please do so at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022, approving the purchase of a land outlined in Resolution 2022.
We have a motion from Tim Royce, District 5. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council. Are there any other motions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2021, accepting an offer from TxDOT for land outlined in Resolution 2021.
Have a motion from Tim Royce, District 5. Is there a second? I have a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council. We are adjourned. Tim? Thank you so much.